Shalom. Before I get started, I'd like to give all honor, all glory, and all praises unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kradash, and double honors to the apostles and the elders and the bishops of Great Millstone, and Shalom to you hopefully elect, beloved brothers, and you few sisters. Peace be unto you in these last days, because we're truly living in the end times. And the inspiration for this lesson here, it comes after watching the elder brother's lesson entitled Guerrilla Hebrew Malicious Attack on GMS. And before we get into what Alazar has to say, and I'm sure by now all of you are privy to the information that has been divulged regarding Deacon Hakah and one of his wives. You have to consider all sorts of information has come out and is continuously coming out. And we all know who Deacon Hakah is at this point. We all know who Alazar too as well. All right. And let me say this, brothers, before we delve into this particular lesson. All right. Should you take a wife or multiple wives unto yourself, remember, we're not niggas in the world. Okay. We are righteous men. We deal with everyone righteously. Yes, every marriage and every situation is going to be different. However, right, we're righteous men of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, man, and we have been taught to love our wives, right, and not love them according to this current culture, this current world, on some simp, Keith Sweat, babyface, Evan shit, man. But we love them according to the scriptures. Let me say this before I delve into this particular lesson. You know, I've been with my rib now 20 years. You know, I have a son that just turned 20 not too long ago, and you know, I have several children that are young adults. All right, we've been together for a substantial amount of time. All right, when you get a wife or you get multiple wives, you take multiple wives unto yourself, which is not, you know, a sin according to the law. You know, it's not for you to turn into a 8-ball and MJG. You know, this is space age pimping, man. You have a huge responsibility to take care of the woman and treat the woman right. Now, certain infractions and verbal skirmishes are going to occur. Yes, absolutely. As the Apostle Paul states, we're going to have trouble in the flesh, all right? And do know and understand, you know, again, this is not about me. This is about, you know, hopefully edifying the flock. But in my 20-year span with my wife, all sorts of shit has happened, all right? Okay, brothers, and do understand that. You take a wife unto yourself, man, you know, all sorts of things are going to happen throughout the duration of that marriage. All right, but anyway, let me come from this here. I'm going to play a portion of this. We're going to get right into the scriptures. And even while I begin to play this, you know, I think about the leaders and our elder over our camp, our bishop. You know, throughout the years, he's told us several times, you know, be patient with your wife. Take care of your family. All right, because the scripture tells us to love our wife the same way we love ourselves. So this is a bunch of BS here, but I'm going to let this play here. And of course, I'm going to chime in with the scriptures momentarily.
To us. We almost expected it.
Well, you should have expected it. And here's how disingenuous Elder Apostle Gabar is and Great Millstone is. Because why wouldn't you expect behavior that you taught us to do? You guys literally taught us to talk down to women, to beat and abuse women, to take women's money, to not take care of kids, to abandon women and children. This was literally prescribed by the elders of Great Millstone. We were young, impressionable in the faith, and this is what you poured into us. The very behavior you're saying you're not surprised about, that the sister is complaining about, is the very behavior that you guys encouraged us to do. I remember being young.
Let me come from this here. And I'm going to leave a link in the comment section. You can go back and watch that video in its entirety, all right? But let's suppose that was true, what the man is saying here. And even when I consider what Alazar said, who told you to put various objects in your rectum, all right? Who taught you to do that, all right? All right? That says a lot about a man when he places the blame on someone else for his or their actions, all right? And that shows characteristics of a woman, right? Because women, you know, they avoid accountability like the damn plague. All right. Now the next several precepts that I have lined up for you, you know, are just all things that, you know, especially for you younger brothers that might not have a wife, you know, you might not take a wife unto yourself, but these are all things you have to know prior to. All right. Before I read Exodus chapter 21, let me go to the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 36, verse 24, and it reads, "He that getteth a wife beginneth a possession." And what does a man do with something he possesses? You know, he takes care of it, he tends to it, he looks after it, because a wife is something that we own. She's ours. But continuing on, it reads, a help likened to what? Himself. All right? Because the scripture tells us to love your wife the same way you love yourself. It's only going to benefit you. And like I said before, yes, verbal, upheavals and altercations and shit is going to happen, man. That's a part of it. As we're going to get in the next scripture, you are going to have trouble in the flesh. Some things you can see coming, some things you can't foresee coming, but you're going to have to deal with it all. Let me read that again. And he that getteth a wife beginneth a possession, a help like unto himself, and a pillar of rest. All right, let me come from here. Let's go back to the book of Exodus chapter 21, verse 10. And it reads, and if he take him another wife, what is it implying? That a man already has one, but you're taking another. Listen to the responsibility here. Her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall not diminish. All right? Okay, I said this before and I'm going to say it again. Getting a wife or getting multiple wives or taking multiple wives into yourself, it's not about getting boxed every damn day, especially the longer you are together. Marriages is going to shift, all right? They're going to develop intricacies. It's going to be layered. And I can't say this enough, brothers. You're going to have to deal with all sorts of shit, man, all right? Okay, let me come from this here. Let me go to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 28, and it reads, but if thou marry, let me read that again. But if thou marry, thou hast not sinned, because it's not a sin to take a wife or take multiple wives unto yourself. And if a virgin marry, she has not sinned. But here's the point. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh, but I spare you that. It's not a maybe, right? The trouble in the flesh is coming. It's going to look different from man to man, brother to brother. Every situation, every marriage is going to be different, all right? The Apostle Paul said, but I spare you that. Remember, this is the same apostle that told us, I wish that all of you were like I was, just roughly paraphrasing. The Apostle Paul was single, man. There's nothing wrong with being single, brothers, okay? But if you are going to be married, do understand you are going to have trouble in the flesh. And that's what Deacon Hakah is experiencing right now, all right? And it reads this in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. Look at what it states here in the subheading, a word to husbands. And it tells us this, husbands, likewise, dwell with them with what? Understanding. Understanding of what? These scriptures. Giving honor to the wife as the weaker vessel, and being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. Something I want to focus on here, brothers. The scripture tells us the woman is the weaker vessel, man. And that's something you have to know and comprehend, right? Even before you take a wife unto yourself, brothers, all right? Remember, as I said before, when you take a woman unto yourself, you become likened unto her father, man, all right? Okay? You got to be able to coach, guide, lead, instruct. You got to have it in your mind prior to that you're going to be dealing with a myriad of situations. But nevertheless, continuing on, the scripture says, give honor to the woman. Let's go to that word honor, all right? And I'm going to jump around a bit here to get to the point. And it reads this, action of honoring or paying respect to, act or gesture, display reverence or esteem, the state or condition inspiring respect, nobleness of character or manner, high station or rank, a mark of respect or esteem, a source of glory, a cause of good reputation. You see that? And that woman's high rank or status, remember, she's the vice underneath you, okay? All right? But let me come from this here. You get the point there. Let me go back to this. I'm going to read that again. Husband, likewise, dwell with them with what? Understanding. With the woman with the understanding of the scriptures, all right? And also the understanding that you can assess from just gazing your woman, assessing her mood, her temperament, her characteristics, and so forth, all right? Okay? And understand, when you take a woman unto yourself with multiple wives, all of them have different personalities, different little quirks about them, okay? These are all things that you got to know and understand. Giving honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered, all right? And I want to highlight this point here, specifically on the latter end of the precept. It states that your prayers may not be hindered. You see, you should be getting along with your wife. Yes, every marriage, every relationship is going to have its ebb and its flows, but for the most part, you should be getting along and be living at peace with one another. The scripture states that your prayers may not be hindered. Let me come from this here. Let me go to the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 25, verse 1, and it reads, in 3 things I was beautified, and stood up beautiful both before Yahweh and men, the unity of brethren, the love of neighbors, and a man, here's the point, and a man and a wife that agree together. Meaning what? They get along, man. Let me come from this here. And knowing all these things, the book of Ecclesiasticus chapter 4 verse 30 tells us this: be not as a lion in thine house. Right? And many of you, Jakes, because you were raised by single mothers or by your grandmother, whatever the case may be, you didn't grow up in a house that it was peaceable, all right? That it was a place of safety, if you will, for lack of better expression, all right? Okay, you got to consider something, man. You get home, that's your fortress of solitude, man. And you want to grow up in a home or construct or build a home as to where when you're there, it's peace there. Like I said, yes, there are going to be certain infractions, if you will, but the majority of times it has to be a peaceable situation. And it all starts with us, brothers. You cannot be a lion in the damn house or frantic among thy servants. Who's your servants? Your wife or your wives and the children, all right? Okay? Now let me come from this here. Let me go to the book of 1 Ezra, chapter 4, verse 25, and it reads, a man loves his wife more than his father or his mother. Now let me go to that word love, because I want to go into that definition there, all right? And it gives us this in the Greek.
Strong's G25, agapao. Agapao.
Agapao. And what does it states? Of persons to welcome, to entertain, to be fond of, to love dearly. Let me go a little further into that root word. All right. And it reads to love, to approve of, to like, to sanction, to treat affectionately or kind, to welcome, to befriend, to show signs of love, to kiss, to be fond of doing. All right. Okay. And these are all characteristics and things we have to show and have to implement. All right. When you're dealing with the woman, it reads this in the book of Colossians, chapter 3, verse 8 through 19. And it reads, wives, submit yourselves what? Unto your own husbands, as is fitting in the Lord. But here's the point here. Something I want to highlight is verse 19. Husband, love your wives and do not be bitter against them. As I said from the very beginning, I experienced all sorts of things in these 2 decades of being married to my rib now. All right. And there's certain bitterness that you are going to have to put off. Right. You have to love the woman. All right. And I'm not talking about on some simp Keith Sweat shit, some Babyface Evans energy. No, love your wife according to the scriptures. And again, all of them are going to have different personalities, different characteristics, so on and so forth. And you got to be able to deal and be ready to deal with all of that. All right. Let me come from here and let me finish here in the book of Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 25. I'm going to read all of this because all of this is good. And it reads, husband, love your wives as Hamashiach loved the church and give himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleanse her by the washing of the water of the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy, without blemish. And let me say this too as well. Loving your wife also looks like, if you have a rib, you're going to teach her the scriptures, you're going to teach her various things, because you wash her by the renewing of the word. She's not going to understand the deep mysteries, the deep breakdowns, but you break down things to her so she can get it and be a better servant to you, right? But continuing on with verse 28, in the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one has ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes it and cherishes it. Again, you got to treat your wife the same way you treat yourself. Are things going to happen? Absolutely. Will you have to forgive her time and time again? Hell yeah. All right. That's a part of it. It's part for the course. All right. But I'll read it again. But nourishes it and cherishes it, just as Hamashiach does the church, because we are members of his body. Therefore, a man shall leave his mother and father and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This mystery is profound, and I am saying that it refers to the Hamashiach and the church. However, that each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. And yes, the women have a responsibility to do as in terms of respecting their husbands too as well. But something I wanted to highlight here, brothers, is to love your wives, man. Take care of the woman, all right, because she is a pillar of rest too as well. And I hope through the spirit and the power of Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, that this lesson has been edifying. And to the point, keep pushing, keep believing, and keep the faith. Shalom.